Hi everyone, welcome to School of Scarlett. Today I have another message to share with you. So something interesting happened this past weekend and I kind of want to share that with you. I hope it doesn't really bother you too much that half of this room is dark and the other half is light. I was actually filming outside for a whole nother video about getting ourselves ready. It was about basically what I was doing today. But the wind got so strong, a cold front is actually coming through here in Texas. I don't know where y'all are from, but comment down below. I love hearing where everybody is from. But there's a cold front coming in, and it was actually a really pretty, setup out there. But unfortunately, the wind was just really messing with the camera and just everything. So I decided to come inside here to my office, and I don't have any lights in here right now. So this is what it looks like. And as I came in here, I realized that, I don't have the lights in here. And it really got me kind of sparked on to talking about something that happened this past weekend. And it's quite interesting. I don't know where this talk is going to go. So this will be a surprise to me as well. So this past weekend, we were at a craft show. My daughter and I do like a little pop-up shop, kind of like the craft vendors that sell things at different places. And so my daughter and I do this together. And this past weekend, we actually were at our church, this church that I used to attend. I don't attend there as a member any longer, but we attended this church for about 7 years or so. And so, everybody knows us there, and that's our church family from back when we went there. Not so much anymore in the ways that we don't attend there currently, but everybody, is still very friendly and knows us and all that stuff. And so we were there to sell our pop-up shop stuff. And we often go to a lot of different places, but this happened to be at this church. So that's why it's even more unusual. But anyhow, we were there selling our things, and what had happened before we even went there to sell things is that there was 2 sections to sell items. You could be selling items on the inside of the church, or you could be selling items on the outside of the church. And I thought that I had signed up because we've done this show before to sell items on the inside of the church. It's kind of like a nutcracker market, getting ready for the holidays, people that sell holiday items and things like that. It's just a fun event that people go to buy their Christmas gifts and stuff around here. So I thought, and I was pretty sure that I had gotten the spot inside, that I had paid, that I had gotten everything squared away for us to be selling items inside. Well, come to find out, as I was getting ready to print out my confirmation and everything, getting ready for the next day, I realized I had never even signed up for the show. And I thought, oh my goodness. So I got online and I tried to sign up for the show, and there was no spots available inside. So I called them, I let them know what had happened, that I thought I had signed up, and they said, nope, there's no spots inside. We're completely booked. You're going to have a spot outside of the church. And I thought, okay, that's fine. I'll go ahead and take the spot outside the church. So regardless, we went to the show and we were outside. We set up our tent. We were having, our sales and everything happening. And towards the end of the show, this woman comes up to us that we know, and she asked us, how did the show go? And we said, it went pretty good, not as well as last year, but it went pretty well. And she mentioned to us, she was like, oh, well, we had a horrible time inside. There was no light for 3 hours, and there was just no electricity in the church. And no one in there really did very well because they couldn't take credit card payments. The Wi-Fi went down. There was no lights to see the products, and people just couldn't even come in and out. And I thought to myself, wow, that is so interesting and crazy, because this whole time we've been outside totally oblivious to the fact that this was happening in the church. And so as I was getting ready to come into this office to film, and I realized that there was no light and all this stuff, I kind of got this intuitive message coming through that for the longest of time, we have believed that the light, or what we think is God or source, is found in a church. And that's the one place that it can be found. And just like at this craft show, you would think that the light would be in the church, that the better location, the better spots would be in the church. But it's not so. The lights went out in the church, and it was actually way more inconvenient to be in the church than to be outside like I was. So what is happening now is that our reality is changing. For many years, for all this time in history, we have thought that we have to go to a building, or we have to go to a master, a pastor, a guru, an expert, a doctor, even somebody else, to seek out the answers for what's happening within our being. But the thing about it is, it doesn't matter what building you go to. That's not exactly where the light is. The light is where you're at. And it doesn't matter if you're outside of that building. If you have harnessed the light within you, the light will be with you no matter where you go. And this is just a metaphor. It's not, that's just because that happened, that means that. It's just something that sparked this conversation for me. So we have to see that there are situations that sometimes we get into where we're trusting others with what really we already know about ourselves. When we were attending church, and it wasn't just this church, a lot of the times they would tell us what to do. They would basically prescribe what was okay to do, what was not okay to do. And these are things that now we are seeing that we can discern for ourselves within our own being. Discernment is something that is really, rising above here in the 5D. We no longer need someone to tell us what is okay to do and what is not okay to do. Going to places that shame people for being a certain way or not being a certain way, that's no longer needed here anymore, okay? There is already the discernment of your own being. You already have the light within you. There is no light anywhere outside of yourself but the light within. And when you connect with that, that's where everything is and everything manifests from. So the other thing about attending church, and I remember this, and I thought it was so strange. I know it would happen a lot at our church. Our church was more of a community church. It was a larger church, so there was a lot more people coming through, people that didn't go there very often. But I went to a church a couple times, and I'm not going to mention what church or what, but if any of y'all know me, you probably know what I'm talking about. And this church only had a few members. It was a very small church, and the members that went there were elderly people. And they were some of the sweetest people. They'd been in the church forever. Most of them didn't have like a very crazy lifestyle or anything like that. But every time I went to this church, there was so much shame. There was a preaching sort of directed towards that these people were sinners. The people that were sitting there in this congregation, which again, they were elderly. Most of them were sick and out of the hospital. They weren't out on the streets, drinking or doing drugs or doing anything really. But every time I went there, the preaching was so much like, you're a sinner. You did this. You have gossiped. You have done this. You have done that. You are going to hell. If you don't repent, you're going to hell and hell and hell and hell. And this would be brought up over and over again. I'm thinking, I kind of thought deep down inside, why isn't the preaching style changed? Because, just looking around, I don't think that these people are dealing with those sorts of issues that, they need someone to shame them into being a certain way when they're already probably been living this life of following Jesus for many years. And this would happen at my church as well, that there was a whole lot of condemnation, always saying that someone was going to go to hell, that this person in the church did this. And there would be examples kind of to scare people. There was a level of fear in that church, and not just in that church, in many churches that I have attended, that was just not natural, because the service would start off with singing and praising, and as soon as the preaching would start, it would be like you felt shamed until the end, where you could repent. There would be a prayer at the end that we would all say together. But deep down inside, what's being programmed is that we are sinners, that we are not okay, that the things that we do are not okay. They should be shamed. We should repent. We shouldn't live this way. We shouldn't think this way. We shouldn't be this way. And you see, when we really look at the Bible or anything like that, lots of religious books and things like that, they don't actually talk so much about hell. They don't actually talk so much about these things. They talk about love. They talk about forgiveness. They talk about acceptance. But yet when we go into these buildings, into these churches, it's very dark. It's actually not the light that you would expect in there. And sadly, myself and my family actually were treated in a way that we've never been treated outside of a church ever, in a way that it was very judgmental. They would exclude us. It wasn't like other places. I've worked in a lot of different companies and things like that, and had coworkers. We've had friends outside of church, but church, for whatever reason, was a space that there was a lot of darkness. And although we went there to seek the light, we found the light within us, but the building itself and the people within it were very, very dark. The other part about it was that I was in a church that was more of a community church, and this church had a group online that they called, I'm not going to name it, but it was like, let's say, Bible Girls or something like that. And it was an online group that we were all part of. And one day my husband was just curious, and he said, could I look and see what y'all talk about in this group? And I showed it to him. He said, wow, this is horrible. Why do y'all talk about these things? And what was happening in this group was that every post that anyone was posting was talking about how some horrible tragedy had happened to them and they needed prayer. This thing happened to them and they needed prayer. They had this thought and they needed prayer. They felt they were prideful and they needed prayer. They felt that they had gossiped and they needed prayer. So everything was very shameful. And I actually never participated in any of that, but it was definitely there. And there was never any times that someone shared, let's say, an accomplishment or a prayer that was being answered, or even planning like an activity to do together. It was a place that was very negative, very dark. And as a matter of fact, I think my husband said, just get off of there. And over some time, I decided to get off of there, because seeing that negativity over and over again brings you no light. It doesn't allow you to expand. It only allows you to see more and more darkness and feel as if, something bad is looming over you, and that you need, to be connected to this group or be part of this prayer in order to come out of it. And it really keeps you in a very stagnant energy. So all this to say, we don't need to necessarily go to a building. We don't need to necessarily go seek out a person that we feel is enlightened in some way. The light is already within us. Doesn't matter where you go. If you're shining your light, it's going to happen. It's going to be seen, and you're going to feel it, and you're going to have, the benefits of that. So just like I was at a church event and I thought the best place to be is inside of the church, where there's light, where there's electricity, where there's, air conditioning, let's say. That's not the best place to be, and it wasn't the best place to be at this time. The best place to be was wherever I was, and I was outside, and I was totally oblivious to what was going inside. Nothing that happened inside hurt me at all. We were outside, and the other reason that they couldn't get Wi-Fi is because they had a metal tin roof. So every time they needed to connect, they had to go outside of the building regardless. So there was just various layers of metaphors and things that are coming through about this situation that's really quite interesting. So to connect, it wasn't that we had to be inside. See it that way. People in church sometimes think that we're going to church with people that are like-minded, that this is where we need to connect with people, is in the church. But the reality of it is that we don't need to only be in the church and connecting with like-minded people. We need to be outside the church, expanding and connecting with people of all kinds, opening our hearts, accepting to all people, no matter what their race, religion, beliefs, or ethnicities, or whatever happen to be. We have to be expansive. And we have to be just like God is, think of ourselves in an infinite nature, not confine ourselves to a building, because in that building, you're going to find you can't connect. You're going to have to go outside of that building to truly connect with the things that are meant for you. So I don't know who needs to hear this message or who this message is for, but it came through for a reason. And I like to share these messages because you never know who they may touch. I get emails quite often about certain videos and how they touched someone, or, how they spoke to someone in a certain way. And I'm always surprised, because sometimes I think these messages don't, resonate, or, there may be off the topics that I normally talk about. But for some reason, this message is coming through. So I hope that if you found this message, it found you well. If it resonated with you, give me a thumbs up, a heart, comment down below. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here. If you're new, I hope that you'll subscribe. I hope that you'll come back, and I will catch you on our next message. I love you all.